Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 0000045 of LivCo. We're approaching our 1-year anniversary and really excited this morning to have old buddy from Douglas South Hall Freeman High School who went on to UVA and then Harvard Business and then founded incredible startup, did a whole bunch of stuff, and is now doing another startup in the home services industry. Will Boland, I'm really excited to dig into all of this stuff. Thanks for being here, man.
Same. I'm thrilled to be here. I mean, this is one of the most fun aspects of starting businesses and just putting things out there in the world. You never really know what it's going to resurface, connections that you're going to make or reconnect with in your life. This has been one of the more fun ones. I think you had seen, some sort of post about what we're building at Henry, and we're like, whoa, this is kind of interesting. I've been thinking about my mom being at home and aging in place, and how is she going to take care of her home, and that just led to a really fun initial conversation and a bunch since. So it's glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and to set the table, because we're going to get into Henry Homes, which your newest startup in the home services industry, which obviously a light bulb, when you posted some stuff about that, a light bulb went off, like we got to reconnect. But if we go way back, well, we don't need to go way back to high school, but but it was after college, you had started CarLotz with some buddies.
Yep.
And I reached out because I was like, Will, how you doing, man? It's been way too long, but this is a super cool idea. Did it come from the Freeman parking lot? Because at our high school is on the corner of, I don't even remember the names of the two roads, but when people were trying to sell their car over the weekend, you would just park it in the corner of the Freeman parking lot. There's always cars for sale there.
Exactly. And they still do it.
They still do it. So you founded CarLotz. So did that have any basis on...
It's funny. It really, not specifically that corner lot, but that concept. When we first got started, just quick funny story from the early days. There's always people telling you like, "Oh, this won't work," or "I would never do it this way," and you just got to kind of keep going forward. But I remember one of the folks that we chatted with said, "I don't know why I would ever pay someone to do this. I'll just do it myself." And they left their car on Grove Avenue with a for sale sign, and lo and behold, someone wrecked into it while it was sitting there for sale. So we were kind of, getting a chuckle, like maybe you want to rethink, your approach. But it really did come from a place of, actually for me, like sort of deep personal insecurities. I never really was interested in cars or driving. I actually didn't even have my license when I was at Freeman.
Really?
Yeah, I never drove. Eventually, she forced me to take driver's ed, which was just a whole hilarious experience because I was with all the young people, and they were like, the guy that taught me how to drive, you're supposed to have like, I don't know, 20 hours of on-road or something through these programs. And during our first test drive, he looks at me and goes, what are you doing here? And I was like, explain to him, why I was forced to take this test and why I didn't really care about it. And he's like, how about I do you a solid and you do me a solid? And I'm like, where is this going? He's like, how about I just say you did your 20 hours and we can call it a day. So I don't know if that has anything to do with why I ended up in the car business, or at least to most of my friends, that came as like a huge shock. But the reality is it's just something you have to deal with as an adult. And I was uncomfortable with the process of buying and selling used cars. So thinking about it purely from a consumer angle and solving some of my own personal problems and insecurities, this idea resonated with me that like there has to be a better way when it comes time to sell your used car. If you go to CarMax or a local dealer, you get a trade-in offer, it's really easy and fast. But the big trade-off is you're getting a wholesale price, which consistently we saw was $4,000 to $5,000 below the retail price. So that's a big gap in the middle. The flip side is you sell it yourself and you're dealing with, maybe someone wrecking the car on the side of the road, but more.
Wait, and on that, was that you guys? Did you guys like send someone out to?
Yeah, it's a little sabotage. It's a good PR. But you know, you got to do whatever it takes in those early days.
Right.
But it's you know, it's even when that doesn't happen, even when it goes well, it can be a pain because you know you're having to spend time researching and figuring out how to price it. You know, do I fix it up now or do I just let that get baked into the price? I'm putting an ad out there and I'm dealing with strangers calling me and no showing for test drives. It's just a really awkward experience. So we're like, why don't we kind of take this idea that, you know, homes have brokers, agents, real estate agents can represent, you know, the house, obviously a much bigger asset, much more important financially, but for a lot of people, you know, car is a big investment as well. And so that was kind of the initial idea. We could play this middleman role, create a much better experience for the seller, and hopefully capture some of that big margin between wholesale and retail. And that's ultimately how it played out. For the most part, we would consistently see, you know, $2,000 to $3,000 more than the trade-in offer is what our sellers would capture even after our fee. We just charged a flat fee for the service to get it, you know, cleaned up, staged,
certified, right?
Yeah. And then, you know, have a retail location where buyers can come in, and it felt more like a traditional used car experience to the buyer. You know, we tried to make it very friendly. We had fixed pricing, you know, and a bunch of other things, non-commissioned salespeople, that kind of made it a more comfortable experience for both sides. But ultimately we built it to serve people like me who didn't want to go through the process of selling it themselves, but knew that the value of the wholesale channel was way lower than what you could capture otherwise.
So when you guys started that, you were probably what, 25 years old or something?
So this was for me, maybe 2 years out of business school. So I started my career in finance and, you know, love the experience, worked with so many brilliant people. But the type of work that I was doing, investing in middle market companies or representing them, you know, as an investment banker, those individuals that were running those businesses and building those companies and having an impact in their communities and for their employee base and ultimately the customers that they serve, that really appealed to me, was sort of being in that position. So I went back to business school with the idea that I wanted to learn and carve my path towards this sort of entrepreneurship path, whether it was coming up with an idea and trying to bring it to life, or maybe acquiring an established business, you know, from a seasoned operator who was transitioning to another part of their life and taking it, you know, to the next level. And so I just didn't feel like I had the right skills or experience to do that. So after business school, I landed in Raleigh working for an amazingly talented entrepreneur who was pretty wild individual, just like the classic, you know, just very bright, but very out there personality. And I learned so much from him. And then ultimately this idea for CarLotz reconnected with a previous colleague from my first job out of UVA, and felt like, hey, this is the right thing. I can come back to Richmond. I can work with someone who I had kept in touch with and had always sort of envisioned myself maybe in a future career path, coming back together on an idea. He's a brilliant guy, great idea guy. Always thought he was destined for something big. And so, you know, that was really fun. And so that was sort of the process was probably age 30. I think at that point is when we started, at least that's how old I was. I had two co-founders who were 3 and 6 years older than me. So they were a little bit further along in their careers, but roughly in the same spot mentally in terms of what we wanted to accomplish.
Yeah. And so would you say the sequence is the passion, the entrepreneurial dream, right? The passion, and then, okay, now I want to learn more of the nitty gritty. So I want to go to graduate school and go to the best place that I can to learn all of that. Then the idea, then assembling kind of the high level team to execute said idea. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you know, I'm sure others have different paths and there's no right path. I think for me, I didn't have that idea initially. I had a bunch of ideas, but nothing that I felt like this is the one that I'm really, you know, willing to really commit myself to. And also, the people to me were really important. I had worked with so many great people in the early part of my career, and people who I was like, these people are way smarter than me. Like, if I could just align myself with one of these people, I can sort of ride coattails. And I want to bring my own contributions, obviously,
Sure.
but it's motivating when you have, business partners or people, wherever you're working that you admire and look up to and want to perform for. And so it really helped me see what a standard really was. The standard, was maybe even higher and beyond what I thought was capable. And so it helped kind of propel me. And that happened at every stage of the process. So, we just continually wanted to get better, and you have to reinvent yourself throughout. But I just always like the idea of creating something and bringing something to life. The specific idea wasn't as important to me as just doing it at all and doing it with people who I was excited to, wake up and try to create something with every day.
Yeah, I love that. And what I think is going to be cool about this conversation is, right now we're walking through, kind of phase one, right? And then when you take everything that you learned from that, and now you're in phase two in the Henry Homes. I think it's really cool because you went into, I'm going to build something. We're going to do it the best way that we can. We're going to assemble the people. There's probably a fair amount of ignorance is bliss. Is that fair to say? So it's a little less scary,
Hugely. I mean, knowing what I know now, like I would never have started what we did at CarLotz. And I didn't learn my lesson clearly because now I'm, doing it in the home services space. And I guarantee you, like we're, not that far into our journey, but I can just fast forward, a couple of years. I'm sure I would look back and go, gosh, there's a million things we would have done differently or maybe not at all. But I do think that outsider's perspective and that continual optimism that you can create and build something interesting and bring something into the world that people will love or will value or will solve, some problem better than maybe it's being solved today. That is like just the core underlying, I think, belief or quality that probably all entrepreneurs and certainly, multiple time entrepreneurs share is just that desire and that optimism that they can pull it off.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that, and I'm just, asking for a friend, says nothing to do with me and my entrepreneurial journey. But so the first CarLotz was in Richmond, so that was small boutique localized, right?
Yeah.
But always with a scalable plan.
Yeah, that was the idea. I mean, we actually set out to build a much bigger business initially in terms of like writing the business plan and what we thought we could pull off than where we actually started. But this is just the nature of early stage ventures. You might need capital to build to a really big vision, and if that capital is not there, you got to sort of reassess. And that's really what happened to us. Is we had this big idea and we wanted CarMax sized locations, and that was going to require a significant investment in getting the lease and building up the brand and attracting the inventory and hiring the team and all those things. And the people that we went out to to support us financially were like, hey, I like you guys. I think this is an interesting idea, but I'm not sure you can pull it off. I'm not going to write a huge check, but I'll write a smaller one. And if you can prove to me that people will sell a car this way, then come back and I'll write the next one to support the bigger location or the next location. And so that's kind of what we had to do, is just go back to the drawing board and say, does this work if we're not building a huge team, if we're not paying ourselves? Like, are we still really excited to do this on a smaller scale? And the answer was yes. And then we just had to do what we said we were going to do. And fortunately, we had supporters who, when we did that and went back to them and said, now it's time for a further investment to expand this, they were excited to back us. So that was sort of the process there. And we always envisioned, though, if we could do it in Richmond, successfully and have compelling unit economics and have a great customer service experience, that the potential to expand it into other geographies was clearly there.
Well, and you did. I mean, you guys were in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
What other markets did you guys expand into?
San Antonio, Charlotte, Greensboro, Florida, ultimately went out to California. The key turning point for that business was when we started working with commercial clients. So building a consumer business is really challenging. It's fun for me to think about because it's, I'm really good at thinking about my own problems and, trying to solve my own issues and insecurities. And, fortunately, a lot of people had those in the car space, so it was more broadly applicable, but that's where it really started. But it just takes time because it's a new way of doing things. People are resistant to change, and you have to educate the market, and that requires investing in marketing and advertising and all those things. So it was a slow ramp. Like if we have to attract inventory, so we worked on a consignment model. If you wanted to sell your car,
right,
you'd bring it to us, and then we would prep it for sale. So we couldn't just open a location and be full of cars and start selling. We had to attract the inventory, and that requires a significant investment in educating the consumer. Well, the flip side is commercial accounts like rental car companies, large franchise dealerships like Tesla, for example, that don't sell used cars, but they want to make it easy for their buyers, so they offer trade-ins. All those cars get sold through the wholesale network. That's the real lifeblood of the auto industry, just in terms of the volume that goes through those. And so, the economics that are available to the consumer are also available to the wholesaler. So we went out and pitched a bunch of companies and large leasing companies, and the Tesla, experience was really important for us. And basically a lot of these big companies, the way they work, and this is like not just in the auto space, but everywhere, I'm sure you've seen, even if they like your idea, it has to be big enough for them to make a commitment to working with you. So partnerships with large enterprises are very difficult for small businesses because they say, look, if I do it here in this location, I have to do it everywhere. So unless I can do it everywhere, I'm not even going to do it here. So our expansion strategy ended up becoming, we wanted to be within 250 miles of anywhere we might source a vehicle. So Tesla has tons of inventory on the West Coast. We need to be able to send a truck, pick up those cars that get traded in, bring them to our location in Texas or California. We just needed proximity to those large commercial accounts. So when we opened in those areas, we could very quickly stock that store with attractive quality, trade-in inventory from these commercial accounts.
Wow. Yeah. And I can only, as we get into the home services stuff, because there's the challenges and the car, like the world of car, markets per state is so crazy, right? It's like there's old mafias that run it in so many, like it's just a whole different, like the law. I don't mean to say the mafia is involved in it, but like the laws are left over from like different times. It's not as simple as a consumer market as you probably think. Like I did a lease buyout in North Carolina, and I'm still trying to get my title from Chrysler Capital because they're supposed to mail it. Like it's just like all this stuff is just kind of crazy.
The chain of custody on titles is, I mean, it's an antiquated process, and the number of steps that you have to go through, and really the number of times these vehicles change hands in the wholesale markets. And a lot of it is, driven by paper, and these titles get stamped a whole bunch of different times to reflect the different ownership, and then ultimately they'll issue a new one and a clean one and all that. But it's you're right. Like there are industries, and I think the auto industry's come a really long way, but they've operated a certain way successfully for so long, and there's deeply entrenched behaviors and deeply entrenched competitors that are all aligned around doing things a certain way. And so it's hard as an upstart to break in because, for structural reasons. And the franchise laws are really, big part of that. They're essentially monopolies for these new cars. And, you might have like 2 Mazda dealerships in a town, and it just creates a certain, dynamic that makes it hard for new folks to get in. But there's been a bunch of change. I think Carvana, has been obviously the biggest story in the used car market. And they've, if you look at like their stock chart, it's unbelievable, the ups and downs that they've gone through, and they've been able to make it through, but they still have a lot of skeptics, which is pretty fascinating given they built the biggest, the most valuable used car, company on the planet, by multiples.
Well, and you guys ended up, so did you sell CarLotz?
So we ended up going public via SPAC process back in 2021. That was like a whole craze in terms of, hey, it wasn't really a new structure.
It's a special purpose acquisition, company or something. Gotcha.
Yeah. There was a, low interest rate environment. A lot of capital was flooding into these SPACs. Investor groups would raise money, and then they'd basically go out with a blank check. They call them blank check companies, to find an operating company to then merge into the SPAC. The operating company gets the cash, and now they're traded as a public company, but they can use that cash to, execute their growth plan.
Wow. So you've learned a lot.
Oh yeah.
So Henry Homes. So now we have to segue into that, because everything that you've learned, in that world, you're now applying to a similar, and when we first talked about it, similar problem that you encountered, not understanding homes just as you didn't understand cars.
Yeah.
And so now you're in the world of home services, which has its own crazy challenges, which is why no one's really been able to crack that nut. So you want to just kind of walk us through the origin story there, and then we can dig into where you are with it and keep it going.
Sure. Yeah. So, after the CarLotz experience, I kind of explored a bunch of different ideas and things that I might want to do. And ultimately in between landed at a financial technology company. One of my co-founders from CarLotz had joined as their chief strategy officer and was executing a plan to help them move into new products and services. They had one core product, and they a couple million customers, and wanted to figure out, okay, can we partner or acquire our way into other verticals that will allow us to quickly expand the product suite that this customer base needs. And so he brought me in a corporate development role, which was really fascinating experience. And while we were there, we just saw a lot of interesting things that were happening in the home services space related to, financial products, credit cards backed by, home equity lines and things of that nature. And it just got us talking. We're just curious about the space, as he and I are both homeowners, and sharing, trials and tribulations of dealing with all the issues that pop up around the house, and just feeling frustrated and being on our heels with respect to home maintenance. I think we're both, active homeowners. We have a preventive mindset. A lot of the things that we were doing with our healthcare and in our financial lives, we're all about taking all this data and, getting a bit more sort of a roadmap for where we want to go, and setting up, a process to make this, much easier to execute on, instead of feeling reactive whenever things pop up. And so, that was kind of the initial inkling of the idea. Was like, we've got these big, beautiful homes. They're complex. There's all sorts of complex systems and data there. I've got so many different providers over the years that have come out. The types of issues that arise when I'm, reactive, put me in a position where I'm like, who was that, HVAC company that I used, or who was that plumber that I had out? I really like that person, and you open it up your drawer and looking for like a carbon copy, sheet of paper where they wrote, some service work. And I'm like, geez, there just feels like there ought to be a better way to get a handle on your systems. I mean, I don't know, like you are obviously much more knowledgeable around, home systems with your work and your background than I, but like, it's kind of embarrassing, to walk around the house and be like, I own this, but I don't know what this is. Like, what is this piece of machinery, And the HVAC company, the AC goes out and you're calling them and they're saying, all right, do you have a heat pump or do you have a furnace? I don't know. Like, can you just send your guy out and we'll walk around and figure this out together? And so that was sort of the genesis of the idea. It was like, man, wouldn't it be great if you could have an expert come out to your house, inventory all your home systems, take a look at, what's going on, much like a home inspector would do when you're, purchasing a home. But you've lived in your home now for 6, 7, 8 years. Like, things have changed, things have decayed. Maybe you had some of that information up front from an inspection, but it was sent to you in a dense PDF.
Yeah, it's 200 pages.
Yeah, right. It's so hard to make sense of and to know what your priorities should be. And I just wanted a friendly expert to come through and be like, hey, this is, a cosmetic issue, lower on the priority list. This one, this is concerning. Like, you're seeing some water here. If it gets worse, it could lead to some structural damage. And okay, great. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I want to know. I want to see around corners. And then I want to put the routine maintenance stuff on autopilot. So, like, how many air filters do I have and of what size? Can I just set those up to come from, Costco or Amazon, so that when they show up every 90 days, that's my cue, to replace them? Or could I pay someone to come do it for me? It's all the stuff that you kind of know you should do, but it's just hard to stay on top of because we have busy lives and a million things going on.
Yeah, I love everything about it. And that's how we originally connected on it a little bit, because I had this similar challenge, for my mom, who still lives in the same house for 60 years. Hi, Mom. I'm sure she's watching. 89 years old, and she tries to keep this house up and running. And she doesn't know who to call necessarily. She has people, but those companies are always changing hands. So she usually calls my cousin Steve, who's a builder. So it's like, you need a Steve. So you call your builder friend, and then he sends someone out, right? Like, just sends a plumber.
Yeah.
You have to have the guy that has a guy. And yeah, surely Angie's listing all this stuff, but that's so inundated with just stuff, right? You just want to have your people just to know, like, sometimes you don't even know who to call.
100% that. I think that's really been the key insight for us. A lot of these issues that pop up around the home are not like neatly and discreetly in an obvious bucket of who should do this.
Right. Like a water leak. That's pretty obvious. Right.
Yeah.
But say there's a random crack in the drywall,
Right.
Right.
Is that a handyman or is that something far more problematic? I need to bring in a carpenter or something. So having that go-to resource who is kind of generally knowledgeable and can help point you in the right direction is super valuable. And that's sort of the space that we ultimately want to occupy. We can get up to speed on your home and what systems you have and how you think about home maintenance and help you plan. That was sort of the initial idea, was sort of creating this dashboard of your home and inventory all your systems and do a bunch of testing, air quality, water quality, things that you might not be thinking about. But once you have the information, you're like, oh, that's interesting. I'd love to act on this. And so, what we found though was that while people love to get that report, it was still hard to motivate to the preventive maintenance steps.
Right.
And it's just your natural behavior to fix things when they break, as opposed to getting ahead and doing all the preventive maintenance that prevents the break in the first place. And also, there's a million other little things on your list that you might need help with. You just let it pile up, and It could be, as simple as like a toilet runs on occasion. Is that a major problem, small problem? It's been there for a while. I'll get to it someday. Some scuffs on the wall, just doors that are uneven and, won't close properly. It's just, you kind of just learn to live with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found is like, we could deliver this beautiful report and this overview of the home, but pretty much everybody's next question was like, can you help me with these 5 things? And it's all those 5 little things that have been, staring at you in the face and annoying you, feel like you should be able to take care of this, or, you have the capabilities to, you just don't have the time. And we just want to make it really easy for people to get those things knocked out. So that's sort of where this business has kind of evolved. Is let's start with, instead of starting with this comprehensive view of the home, let's just start with what's on your list.
Right.
Let's help you get unstuck. That friction of not knowing who to call is really the key insight for us, that now that you have someone to call who can help you sort through this like wide variety of issues that might require, 4 hours of handyman labor plus 2 specialists. It's like, that's too much for me to even, to conceptualize as an everyday homeowner. So I just stop. But if I have a go-to resource and I can just dump my list to them, have them sort and filter, and then help me build out that care team and connect me with trusted specialists for the things that do require a specialist. Now I can really start making progress and chipping away at this to-do list. And it's just a much more natural place for us to start the relationship. And then we can build that profile of the home over time to the extent that they want to do more of the preventive maintenance stuff.
Well, on the psychology of it, isn't there a huge value to just a peace of mind? Like just knowing that someone or something is on top of making sure the house is operating safely and properly. It's kind of like when you take your car in and you do that miserable like $50,000 checkup, and then you come out of there and you just feel like my car is going to run great, at least for another 5,000 miles. I don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
Like I just don't. Like my tires are going to be good. Like there's just no worries. Which, and maybe I don't have the ignorance is bliss because I work in the world of homes, and you just, worry about basements flooding. You just worry about like, did I do this right? Like, do I need to add another down? Like just all these little things in running your own home that just linger that you don't even think about. So I do think that I would think that psychologically there's huge value in just knowing that you're not alone on charge of your house, right?
100%.
Someone's got eyes on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just the idea of having a trusted partner or resource who's sort of not incentivized to find things. Now, you might argue, well, you guys are selling something, and it's a handyman service is sort of the core offering. So like, aren't you incentivized to find those things? And it's really why we start with their list as opposed to us going through and finding things. But there are people who during that first visit, hey, can I show you a couple of other things while you're here? Or, hey, would you mind walking around with me and just pointing anything out, that might be a concern?
Mm-hmm.
And then, once we do a couple things and they're like, okay, I like this technician, or I like this approach, I feel good about this company, they start sharing more and more, and they invite us, into the home to do more of that proactive care. It's just sort of the reactive stuff is kind of the starting point. But once you can build out that profile and help people sort of get ahead of those major issues, just because, you've seen it all, like things break, homes decay. What's the important thing to focus on versus the thing that I can, let sit for a little while, or let's just keep an eye on this. And most people kind of know, like, especially on the interior of your home, because you're walking around, you see it all the time. We just try to make it really easy. You've got an app, you can take a quick picture and just upload the issue. We've got, AI is taking a look at it and helping you make sense of it and asking you a few questions to properly scope it. Then you can decide, hey, is this something I want to act on? let me assign it to Henry, to send a team out or to scope into their next visit. But at minimum, you've just got an easy way to quickly sort of gauge what's going on. What is this thing that I'm looking at? Is this a problem I need to act on versus is this more of a cosmetic issue that I can get to when it's convenient?
Yeah, I think that was going to be, that's a good segue into kind of a little bit of the nuts and bolts, because there's obviously a huge technology component to this. So what would you say is the proportion between the technology and then the human aspect of the technician or the concierge, or however you want to describe that person? Because that's probably the harder piece. I don't know.
It is for sure. I mean, they're both hard, but they go hand in hand, at least in terms of the experience that we want to create. The pyramid of like what you have to get right. I mean, certainly the foundation is technical competence. You need people. If you have, technicians or tradespeople coming into the home and putting hands on, they need the skills to be able to do these things. So that's number one. If we can deliver a quality fix or repair, and a lot of the stuff that we're doing is beyond just basic fixes. It's
right.
We can talk more about sort of what the scope of things is, but it moves into sort of the fun kind of upgrade territory and things like that. But you need just good technical proficiency on a core number of things. That's number one. If you screw it up and you have a whole bunch of other great parts of the experience, then it doesn't really matter. The customer's not going to be satisfied. They're not going to come back to you, most likely. Maybe they show you some grace and give you a second chance. But that's number one. So that's sort of the base of the pyramid. And then the step above that would be good communication and transparency. And that's where the product, we can bring a team in and train them up and hire experienced people and feel very confident that, hey, if you give me a list of things, I'm going to go in and I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to take good care of the customer. But if you can then layer on top of that a great product experience for the customer to make it really easy for them to share the information, for our technology to automatically, guide them through a process of providing additional information that might help our technicians properly scope and prepare for a visit, and give them sort of a view like, hey, what is on my list? Like what's in progress? What's been checked off at a previous visit, kind of a record of what's done. That really helps deliver a level beyond just, hey, we took care of the issue. It's like we took care of the issue and we made it really easy for the homeowner to enter information and kind of see a record of what happened. And that also extends to the technician. A key part of making it easy for the homeowner is that we are guiding them through a process that gives our technicians the information that they need. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. AI guided scoping questions are hugely valuable to ensure that we come with the right supplies and materials, or that, hey, I haven't seen this one before. Let me get some advice before I go in. I can show up and deliver a really efficient visit if I have a well-scoped set of tasks, well in advance of the visit. And then, there's other parts of that pyramid in terms of just branding and friendly nature of people and just the overall, customer service experience from, end to end. But I'd say those are the two layers, and the product piece is a really important one to enable that high quality of service.
Cool. No, that makes perfect sense. And then, is related to CarLotz. So like, what did you learn from, phase one entrepreneurial exercise that is informing this next chapter? Everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's both everything and nothing, because it's like, building a company is, especially in a new industry. I mean, it's a bespoke exercise, and there's so many problems. I mean, that's really the job of leaders at a company, early stage or otherwise, but it's just, all right, what's the next problem I'm trying to solve? And, you're just like pinching a bubble and it's just kind of moving around, and you don't really know what those are going to be until you get in there and start, putting something out there in the world and having people, react to it. Like the thing that we thought customers would get excited about is what we were personally excited about, but then it was hard to actually monetize, hard to get customers. So we're like, okay, what's the thing that customers really want? So I think the learning, and then, let's then move the company there. So I think what we've learned, if anything, from the previous experience is knowing that it's okay, we're not going to get it right out of the gates. But if we have a team of people that is aligned around the problem and has a shared set of values in terms of the type of service we want to provide, service level, the type of experience that we want to create in terms of making it really easy for customers to do business with us, and also really easy for our team to work with us. And that extends to specialists and trade partners that we bring in as well. Then, we know that ultimately through a bunch of iteration, we are going to get better and better. Like, bad things happen, you get some negative feedback. It's hard to hear in the moment. But having been through it before, I know that this is just a point in time, and, there's a curve. And so we just happen to be down here, but I know what it looks like to get up here. And it's just, time and energy and care that ultimately will get you there. And I'd say beyond that, so one, that's just perspective. And then two is the team. I have a hard time letting go of things. And I think as an early stage founder, you tend to do everything. You kind of have to do everything in the business to really learn what the business needs and where can you add the most value. And you're basically just playing this game throughout the company's journey of like working yourself out of a job because you're hiring people who can do the thing that you were doing much better. And it's hard to let those things go because once you do it and execute on it, and you feel like this is the lifeblood of the business, I can't just delegate this to someone else. But actually you can, and the company does a lot better when you attract the right people for the right jobs. And so I'm still learning that. It's like still been hard for me to transition and hand things over once I get my hands on it. But having seen it before, where we brought in experienced people to do what we were doing, and they do it much better, and the company accelerates. It's like it's humbling and liberating and really exciting at the same time. It's like now I can't wait to find someone and see what they can do with this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. And where are you guys kind of in the overall development stage right now? So you're in Richmond. Are you fully available, or is it piloting still, or where are you guys kind of at?
Yeah, we're out there. We have a handful of great technicians here that are working in Chesterfield and
Awesome.
Richmond and Henrico and Goochland, and so we've got like a pretty wide service area here around Richmond. We'd love to expand. I think we're learning really what makes the company tick, what we need to do to make this business successful in terms of just like a local unit economics, the type of people that you need, what's the shape of the needs that your customers have, what's the natural kind of repeat and referral like pathway that people are taking when we get started here, how quickly do people add on issues? And that's all very much in process in terms of us learning what we think this business can be at maturity in a market. And, how do we operationalize or how do we introduce things that were done manually? How do we introduce technology, software, AI into the process to reduce the amount of human labor content that's currently involved in delivering our service experience? And I think once we do that, I think we can get to a level where it's like, all right, we've got the right balance between technology and a core value prop and, you know, the labor that is ultimately, you know, providing the services to say, like, if we could do this in the next market and the next market, then, you know, we've got something that's replicable. So we've got, you know, hundreds of customers here. We're, you know, dealing with thousands of issues. We're figuring out, you know, the pie chart of things that people need help with and where we need to be really good and where we need to stop doing certain things and where we can outsource to trade partners. And we're getting a lot better about what that, you know, filtering process looks like. And then introducing technology in to reduce the human labor is sort of in process, but we're not quite there yet.
Well, I mean, so much of it's moving so fast. I mean, when you started on this, I don't even think like ChatGPT was out yet. So like all of a sudden, all these AI tools are terrifying, you know, number one, but also allows the potential for what your services can do to grow exponentially, and then feed the human, because at the end of the day, you're going to need the human doing some of the stuff, right?
You do. I mean, yeah, there's an obvious gap, like in terms of the demand for skilled trades people and the supply, and that's going to challenge our ability to scale the company, is finding that type of labor, you know, in every market where we want to operate. But you're right, like the beauty of the pace at which we're moving from a technical perspective is, I mean, it's astounding, like how quickly things are moving. We can, you know, much more easily scope an issue with, you know, imagery and a basic description and some self-guided, you know, questionnaires. We can introduce training and on-site, you know, videos and tutorials and things for, you know, maybe there's a home issue that a technician has not experienced yet, or maybe doesn't have quite as much experience as a more, you know, seasoned technician. So like, how can we solve this labor scaling problem by leveraging technology to both upfront scope and then route the right technician based on the set of skills that they have, but also empower those people to learn, get up the learning curve much more quickly, and even on site, you know, be able to do something that they haven't seen before. And so you know, as much as we're building for the consumer experience, I'd say even more of our time at the moment is built around the technician experience. How do we make this really easy for a technician to plug into and deliver a high level, you know, handyman service, or if it's a skilled trade, a specialist, you know, we want to bring in, you know, a painter or a plumber, an electrician, a chimney, you know, whatever the case might be. We're seeing all those types of needs in the home, and customers need good trade pro recommendations. And so yeah, we can make it really easy for that trade pro. Then they're going to want to work for us, and they're going to want to prioritize our customers. And so it's just it's a really positive loop.
I think my brain is just churning. I was telling you in the green room before, like I'm kind of a nerd. I listen to these episodes afterwards, and it's not just to hear my voice. It's because when we're having these conversations, my brain's churning so much, and then I want to like re-listen to it and really hear it, because I think there's just so much in here that's really cool. And I know we're going way long. Are you still good on time for? Like,
oh yeah, I'm good. I haven't even looked at the time. But,
and so does Henry operate? Is it subscription membership, and are there tiers to it, and then you can add stuff on, or what's kind of the how from a consumer standpoint, like how do I get you guys involved?
So now we've shifted a little bit from the original vision, just based on, you know, feedback that we were hearing from customers about what they actually wanted help doing. And so we start with just share your list. So you can hop on our website, you dump in, okay, here's the 5-10 things. Sometimes it's just one thing, one big thing, one little thing. You could build that up over time, but ultimately you go through kind of an onboarding flow where we ask you some questions about the things that are happening in your home that you might want some help with. We then get that list. We might spend a little bit of additional time scoping, trying to gather some more information just to make sure that we are sending the right person. But basically we want to have, a hodgepodge of things that you have going on in the house you want help with. And we want to sort that into, here's what Henry handyman team can accomplish. And here's what requires a specialist. So regardless of the issue, we want to help you get an answer and a path forward. And so if it's a specialist, that might be, here's a couple names we recommend, or here's some things to think about, but we'll try to point you in the right direction is the bottom line. And then for the things that fall into the, hey, we can handle this, this is right in our wheelhouse, we sell prepaid hourly handyman packages. So if you just want a 2-hour visit to knock off a few things, it's $99 an hour. If you want us with you through a handful of things, maybe you're prepping your home for sale or you're moving into a new house and you have a long list. Maybe you don't even know everything that's on it yet, but you're like, I know I'm going to need a bunch of help here. You could buy an 8-hour package or a 16-hour package and you get a lower hourly rate, but we only deduct the hours that we use. So if we schedule a 4-hour visit and it takes us 3, we deduct 3 hours. You have an extra hour in your bank for future visits. So we just try to make that really clean, really transparent, and then invite you to add things to your list over time and come out when you have enough to justify a 2 or a 4-hour visit. Let's go ahead and get you scheduled and we'll come take care of it.
Cool. Yeah. And that all points back to the foundation of the pyramid, right?
Yeah.
Keeping it simple, make sure the technical expertise is there.
Yeah.
And then there's so many places we can go from here.
It's exciting. I mean,
yeah.
The types of issues that we're seeing, I don't think anything would really surprise you. There's just that pie chart of like doors, windows, hardware, that's probably our biggest category. You want to hang some blinds, or like a latch isn't working. Maybe you want to install a smart, thermostat, or like a video doorbell or something like that. And it obviously just the issues kind of cascade from there. Tons of, hey, I want to hang a bunch of art, or a plate wall is very popular at the moment, or mount a TV. But we've got some really fun stuff too. Like, hey, I bought this shed from Home Depot or IKEA. I want to plant it here, but I need to build a pad for it. We can do some of that. We had someone reach out, I don't know if like Mahjong has hit you guys down in North
big
Carolina.
In Chicago, I hear.
Big in Chicago. Well, it's all the rage here in Richmond at the moment, and it's really it's a cool game, because there's so many decorative elements to it. Like there's a real aesthetic, and so that extends to the table itself. And so there's all sorts of like DIY projects on Instagram that people are saying, "Ooh, I'd like to build a custom Mahjong table." So is that something you guys can do? And our team loves to do that stuff. So it's more of like, okay, hey, look, we can do any home project. Just tell us what you have going on, and we'll let you know what we think it takes. But those home upgrade type projects that was sort of a pleasant surprise for us to see. Yeah. And we love doing it.
No, well, and in our world, I mean, people don't really like spending money on things you can't see. But they definitely want to spend things on money. Not that, they're trying to show off to their friends, but things that they experience on a daily basis. So sure, there's those foundational issues, kind of the, we want to make sure the sewer's not clogged and all that. But yeah, if I'm going to be doing stuff, at least make my day like a little bit more magical along the way, right? So if I'm going to, replace the sewer and tear apart my basement, why don't I build a family room here down in the basement, right? So that I can actually have something to show for it.
I love that. It's such a great mindset. And I don't know if that's when you guys get like invited in at the point they've already made that decision, but it's also like a cool position to be in, to be able to help them think around the corner. It's like, hey, while we're here, I know this stinks, but like there's an opportunity to make lemonade out of lemons. It's something we talk about a lot just the community aspect of it. Like, what are other people doing around their house that I might want to do? And that, could be home repair issues. And that's more education around like, oh, seasonally you do X, Y, Z to get ahead of this issue. But it could also be these more upgrade, home improvement type things. So like, that's where social media can be really powerful. We try to showcase what we're doing for other people. And, that might trigger an idea, for someone else to say, oh, I'd like to do that too. Like grill cleaning, dirty job. Like I hate looking at my grill every summer when I open it up. It's like, ooh, you guys can clean that off. Like it's not really an upgrade, but it's sort of a nice benefit to get yourself ready for the summer.
Man, how'd you know? I spent all of Father's Day cleaning my Blackstone because it just got so gross and rusty. It's like I could have just, well, I would have needed the 8-hour package for my Blackstone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not how you want to be spending your time.
So I am curious, like in the pie charts and kind of understanding this stuff, like, are there specific projects that have a likelihood to be a bigger deal than they seem? And I'll give you an example. I would guess, especially in Virginia, where electrical's all Romex, replacing a light fixture ends up snowballing into having to install structural boxes in the ceiling. Because so often someone just puts a light fixture in and pulls a wire, and then you're like, none of this is done right. Do you guys see a fair amount of that?
We do. And, it's a challenge. People obviously don't like surprises. And it's tough when you have to be kind of the bearer of bad news. It's almost like you're like, don't kill the messenger, but like,
I don't know what you're talking about. No.
I mean, y'all see that in spades because when you're opening up a wall, you never know what you're going to find. And yeah, I would say it's the hardest part for sure about this job. The scoping, proper scoping, gathering information, and then trying to, you want to be precise because people value the transparency. But if you're precise and then they hold you to that, and it turns out like this took a little longer because once we got in there, we found, a deeper issue that was happening. It's like, well, you said it was going to take 2 hours. So I'm holding, so it's a delicate balance in terms of like customer selection is important, educating them on how things work, setting the right expectation, trying to set our team up for success by not overcommitting. Like we just found that it was hard for me initially. I wanted to say yes to everything, and I did. I mean, I was answering the calls and doing all the initial, customer scoping, and I'm like, yes, we can do that. And then, the technician shows up, and they're like, yeah, Will, like, this is not something we want to touch. And so it took me a minute to be like, all right, I don't want to set these guys up for failure. But I don't want to let the customer down. How do I navigate this? And I actually found when you have the right word track and you can say, hey, look, here's what we've seen and here's my expectation. This would be our approach. But before we do anything, we want to check on this, or I'm just going to refer you right to a specialist because we've just seen these issues time and again, like 80% of the time, you need an electrician or you need a carpenter for this. I don't want my team to touch that and risk, making it worse. And actually, for the most part, customers really appreciate, that like, hey, okay, great. I'm glad you didn't tell me you could do something that you couldn't. And we don't always get it right, but it is a key part of what we do. But anytime you're opening up a wall, anytime water is involved, that's really the biggest, perpetrator of issues that are worsening, because something that might look like a small water issue, maybe there's an active leak that needs to be remedied first. Maybe it's some subfloor that is actually like rotted, or you've got some mold here. Those are always tough, but you'd rather know and act on it than not know, because those issues are there whether you like it or not. And so, yeah, those tend to be the tricky ones, but we're getting better at communicating the bad news and preventing ourselves from, taking on work that we know kind of consistently leads to downstream customer service problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think I learned at some point along the way that there's only two ways to actually have an answer. And this comes into when people are asking what the budget is of what their project's going to be, and we don't know what it is yet. And there's only two places I can access that data, and that's third-party data that maybe we have access to give something relative to it, or previous experience.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what yours is, but this is what my third-party data is telling me. And this is what my historic project experience is based on, which isn't the exact thing, but just to give you kind of a general. Otherwise, I just don't know. So, I don't want to say that we're always saying yes, but we do say we don't know often.
Yeah.
But we can figure it out. And I think, Bruce Case, I learned from him, and has a big remodeling company for years in Washington, D.C. area. And they have a rule, production proven. So in their world, there's stuff that they've done before, and that's production proven. So that goes in one bucket. If it's not production proven, like, I don't know how we're going to do this or if it's going to be able to be done. And so that kind of goes over here. And not saying we're not going to do it, but we have to maybe, budget that or charge in a different way because we just don't know.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of the world in the world of homes, because you have houses that are built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. So you can identify certain characteristics there, but they've also been added on to and modified over the weekend, for years and years and years. And I mean, we do projects in Riverside, Illinois, and you'll have two bungalows right next door to each other that look exactly the same, built by two different builders, completely different.
Yeah, that's wild.
One solid masonry, the other one's, balloon framed. So,
right.
It's just kind of the nature of what we deal with. So, we're trying to stick to the production proven, and we have a pretty good, repertoire of work now of what is production proven and what isn't. So if someone wants to put tile on a door, we have proved that in production. And we've also learned that that's not a good thing to do.
Right. Well, I think
we can do it.
Yeah. They're looking for, you as a trusted expert,
right.
To guide them to the right solution. I mean, I fall victim to this too, but like, you want to educate yourself a little bit as a consumer. So you might communicate something to somebody based on cursory research. And then it's like, is that really what you're asking for? What you're asking for is for the problem to be solved, not for the specific fix that you said you think you need. So if you can get in there and say, look, I know you asked for this, but what I'm finding is this, and I think the better approach is this. You've done a good job. But if what I'm finding is and leads you to this isn't the right thing for us, I think it's hard for the business. It's a better outcome though for the customer and for the business, because what you're doing is avoiding stepping in something that you wish you had. You wish you hadn't. I mean, it's just we've done it. And I'm sure you've experienced. But I love that production proven. I think we should adopt that, because we're seeing so many issues, and I think there's like this bucket of things that are kind of known and we can confidently scope and estimate. And then there's this other bucket where we just need to there's way more caveats, way more variability, way more ambiguity. And it's okay to share that, even if it means you're losing the opportunity. I get it for the consumer. It's hard. Like, if I want a quote on what something should be, is it like this or is it this? If you're getting this hugely wide range, how do you make a decision? But it's just the nature.
I think it's the only industry in the world, in the history of the world, where you give a price for something before you know what it is.
Yeah.
And people expect you to do it. So it's a huge risk. And we do it. I mean, we do lump sum pricing. You go to California and stuff like that, they're used to cost plus. But we design it, and we take big risk, and we need a margin to absorb that risk. It's really, that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going way long, man. And I have another question, because I want to dig into, I just have one more question, then we'll close out where people can find you and all that. But I got to go back to, 1999, Freeman High School. So I was class of 98. You were class of 99. You guys were probably the smartest class to ever come out of Freeman. We had we had some people that went on to do some pretty cool stuff. So aside from yourself, like, what are some of your buddies doing? Like, what are some of the most interesting class of 99ers doing these days?
You know, it's funny.
Living on Mars or something, or?
Yeah, you know, I just had this conversation. So I always share this. I'm like, do you realize like how smart my classmates were? Like I worked so hard in high school, like, and I think I graduated maybe 12th in the class. I mean, like almost all A's.
Yeah.
But I knew like I had to.
It's because you never learned to drive. Otherwise you would.
But like I'm looking around at all these brainiacs who, you know, Ethan Weinberg is like Princeton, and we had a bunch of people, you know, tons of Ivy Leaguers. And you know, it's motivating. Like I like being around really smart people like that because it grounds me. Like I know that the only way I will be successful is if I work hard or have a unique insight, you know, informed by my personal experience. Like I cannot rely on my like intelligence. Like I'm not smart. I just work hard. I'm curious. I figure out the answer. But like we had some really smart people, and I'm sure they worked hard too. But yeah, it is fascinating to look back. I mean, you know, I think they're all doing things that you probably would suspect. Like, you know, a couple are doctor, you know, like 3 or 4 doctors. Actually, one of them is my children's pediatrician, Erin Chu. She went to Duke and UVA Medical School, and now she's a local pediatrician. So yeah, most of them went down paths that you would hope they would go down, like really helping people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Hamby, he's a really interesting one. I don't know if you followed his career. He went to Georgetown, studied journalism, worked at CNN for, I would guess, like a decade, and eventually was hired by Snapchat as their head of news and has been there for several years. But he has a segment on Snapchat, mostly around politics is where he plays, but he's interviewed you know, the Obamas, like he's like friendly with Barack Obama and like all these, you know, famous politicians, because that's sort of, you know, he's at the pinnacle of his career for, you know, political journalism. And so he's somebody that's done something really interesting. And but yeah, we were lucky to, I think, grow up in where we did and be surrounded by great people, and many of whom I still consider great friends. And your class too. Like I think back on how smart all those people were, but also just great people. Like I would hang out with any of them, you know, to this day. And feel like
Rudy, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not him.
Just teaching at Freeman. Just kidding, Rudy. I'm gonna get you on the show one of these days.
Yeah.
He teaches driver's ed.
There's always an exception.
It's so good. No, it's really cool. We should do, I haven't been to a reunion in a long time, but I think I'd like to come to the class of 99 reunion. You guys had a good group, and the 2000 class. Always had a good time. But Will, this is unbelievable, man. We went well over our 30 minutes allocation as usual. So yeah, people want to find you and Henry. Why don't you close us out with some contact info there?
Yeah, so henryhomes.com is our website, and you know, anybody in Richmond would love to find ways to work with you, but hopefully we'll be expanding to other markets, and we're kind of building out tools that we think will be applicable for folks even when we don't have, you know, the handyman service available in the area, in terms of just helping you understand what's going on in the home. So stay tuned for that. And then Handled by Henry is our Instagram if you want to check out some of our technicians at work. They're awesome and are doing some fun projects.
Awesome. So great, man. Great to catch up. It took a while for us to coordinate, but I'm really glad we put it together and had you on.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you do this. And yeah, appreciate you having me. And, you know, you've been a great thought partner for me over the past year or so since we reconnected on this idea. I appreciate it. And hopefully we can keep that going.
Heck yeah, man. All right. Say hey to everyone in Richmond for me. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, DP.
Later.
See ya.
See ya.